So it's my pleasure to introduce Marilyn Jentzen, who we're working with currently related to the Enterprise Transformation Program at Mattel. Now, Marilyn's a senior executive who's in charge of the transformation program at Mattel, reporting directly to the executive committee. She is tasked with identifying opportunities for enterprise transformation across the entire value chain, whether it's manufacturing, supply chain, HR, finance, sales. Her role is to integrate transformation concepts, technologies, programs, and drive the transformation at Mattel. She has over 30 years of experience leading large transformation programs, both in major corporations, but also in technology companies and running shared service centers globally. And that allows her to bring a unique perspective across technology, services, corporate strategy, and execution to the program in Mattel. So thank you, Marilyn, for joining us at this event.
You're welcome.
Very loud.
And please.
So we're going to spend a little time talking about toys for children while we're here at an adult playground, toys for adults. I've been with Mattel, working with them for about a year. They're one of the largest toy companies in the world. I'm sure everybody's heard of Barbie and Hot Wheels. An American Girl, over about $6 billion in revenues. I think what's really interesting right now about Mattel is that they're at a very pivotal point in their corporate history. Mattel is embarking on a really ambitious journey to remake not only their entire product line, but also to remake their entire corporate kind of environment. So I think perhaps many of you being from the Southern California region have seen that we have a new CEO who's come in. She is come from Google, which if you think about the history of Mattel, having a female CEO who's come from technology is a clear signal that Mattel is looking to really transform the way that it thinks about not only the way that it runs its company, but also the product that it delivers out to the marketplace. And so it's very exciting, perhaps a little bit scary to the organization about what they're about to embark on and what they've been trying to do over the past couple years, but it should be really, really exciting. And if you've seen some of the products that have just started to come out into the marketplace with Aristotle, which is the little kid version of Alexa. And if any of you had a chance to try to put together a Barbie dream house over Christmas, which is the voice recognition and Wi-Fi enabled Barbie house. First of all, I'm really sorry. It probably took a while, but your kids loved it. And so it was, but that's a really interesting toy for children. And what I think, as we think about where they're going, Kevin was up here talking about the digital twin. It was really interesting to me because I thought about that. A lot of feedback that we get from children nowadays when they talk about toys, they spend very little time actually just playing with a physical toy. They are spending a lot more time in front of some type of digital device. But a lot of what we hear is, I want my toy to have a chip in it because I want to make it like me. So children already understand that they want a digital twin. They want to have their toy be like them, whether it's a Barbie that they can make like them, or they can dress it up, or they can do what they want, or whether it's something that is a total digital device, they get it, and that's what they want. Because now children that are being born have never ever known a time when there hasn't been a cell phone or a digital device. I think all of us can probably remember that we had a time when we just had physical toys to play with, but now children have never had that. So the whole world of toy making is changing, and companies like Mattel have to change with it. And of course, they have infrastructure that is not necessarily at that same place. So, when you look at what are the things that Mattel is having to do in order to do that, for other companies out there, it's that may be going or thinking about or having to do the same things. It's really hard because you're having to reinvent every piece of your business at the same exact time. You're having to reinvent product and do it really quickly, and at the same time reinvent your infrastructure and all of your corporate function at the same time. And so now the benefit of a company like Mattel is that they have a core brand. It's pretty hard to find someone who doesn't know who Barbie is. It's pretty hard to find people that don't understand and haven't seen the Fisher-Price brands that are out there. You can take those to other markets and capitalize on those, which is a really great thing for Mattel. But in doing so, you also they're really working hard on things like strengthening the global supply chain. So how do you take your manufacturing and really shorten that product development cycle and getting things to market? If you know anything about kind of the toy manufacturing and the time to market, the ability to do that, it's a pretty old cycle of pretty normal manufacturing and the development cycle and the toy cycle and going to the toy fair and all of that. That kind of old product development cycle still exists, but kids are not like that anymore. So you have to turn that upside down, and so Mattel is in the process of doing that. As are all of the toy manufacturers. You can read anything about the whole industry, and it's kind of being turned upside down. So one of the things that we're doing right now is looking at how can we, across the organization, bring transformation. And transformation is kind of people, process, and technology. Technology plays a big part of it, but it's also the people, and it's also the process. So when Kevin talked a lot about do things like robotics and artificial intelligence, do they replace people? Are people going away? So I think Mattel would say there's so much that needs to be done in order to build the new Mattel, in order to build the new product. One of the strengths of Mattel is that they have a lot of people who have been with the company for a long time. And that knowledge, that franchise strength of Mattel is extremely valuable in the marketplace. So how do you free those people up to capitalize on that so they're not doing kind of the day-to-day? And how do you allow them to be part of that transformation? Some of the things that we've been doing as part of the transformation, and we're going to talk a little bit about specifically about some of the technology transformation, but are looking to be able to leapfrog and to be able to employ robotics, to employ some of the automation and things that are out there and not have to go through the cycles that maybe a lot of corporations have done, and just go straight to what is the cutting edge now and be able to take those people and be able to use them to do the things that we really need them to do in the marketplace. So with those transformations, the other thing I think that, and probably most companies out there grapple with, is as you're starting to think about what is your information technology organization doing, what is the role of IT? So I think Mattel is right now at this point of, when we think about where does IT play in the organization, is it that IT is going to be the enabler and partner at the table as you consider all the transformation, or do they continue kind of what has always been a role of IT, of just supporting the organization, being part of the kind of corporate functions that provide IT, technology, computers, all of those things? I think that there is, with many of the new technology that's out there, many of the capabilities, I think that there is a great place for the IT department within Mattel to really think about that as they go through the transformation. And as they impact a lot of the other parts of Mattel's journey. But, I think that's a question that a lot of IT departments out there grapple with every single day. And as Mattel goes through this journey, they too are going to be thinking about where do they go. There's so much to do. That's the question, is how fast can you get there? And what role does every party have to play in that as they go through that? So, those are some of the business imperatives, I think, that set the context for what Ed and I are going to talk to you about in a little bit more detail about. We're going to dive into some of the IT pieces of it, but just to give you some thoughts about where is Mattel right now and where are they going and why are they at this point in their journey.
Thanks, Marilyn. And I think setting up or when we walk into clients, it's fairly easy to make two statements that increasingly go unchallenged. I wouldn't say that was the case, let's say 2 or 3 years ago. And the two statements are these. Technology strategy is synonymous with business strategy. There is no difference between the two. Every aspect of every business value chain is enabled by and supported by technology, whether it's supply chain all the way to products, customer engagement, technology has to be part of the solution. So that's one statement that's fairly easy to make walking in, and some of you have seen these presentations before, you'll see some of the themes are similar. The second statement, which works almost at counter purposes to the first, is that organizations, and this is not just Mattel, it's most organizations, have a 30-year legacy of looking at technology as cost-driven plumbing. And the legacy that creates, whether in terms of disparate systems, whether in terms of upgrade to an ERP now and spend the same amount of money upgrading every 5 years until you kind of give up on that. So how do we take an organization that has some key strengths that almost no other organization has, brands that are synonymous with the top 100 brands. Barbie and Hot Wheels are part of the American narrative in the after World War II to today. How do you take those trends and then try and address a situation where technology, unfortunately, lags behind what the business needs to be? A product innovation cycle needs to be 3 months or less, because by the time you introduce a product in the 4th month, the technology embedded in that product is likely obsolete. A lot of our clients go with situations where they have a 9-month capital planning cycle, a 12-month implementation cycle, and the stuff they implement is already obsolete, in some cases not supported. How do you deal with the fact that you have legacy systems that are doing a good enough job of supporting processes today, but to replace them with agile systems that can integrate artificial intelligence, can integrate sensors, can be hosted on the cloud, probably takes hundreds of millions of dollars that most companies do not have to spend on IT transformation. So those are some of the challenges that we've been dealing with in taking the business vision that Mattel has articulated and Marilyn articulated very eloquently, and marrying that with the reality of where the technology is today and where it needs to be. And what we've been talking about over the last 6 months is a roadmap that says there is a way forward that does not replace yesterday's legacy with tomorrow's legacy. There's really no point moving from AS400 systems or Visual Basic systems to an ERP, which will be obsolete in 5 years. And we'll be sitting. It's great for the consultants because we get to come back every 5 years and tell you roughly the same thing we told you for the last 20 years, and you spend money on it. Again, it's kind of crazy. But how do you break through that cycle? How do you not spend another $100 million to do that, to have the privilege of doing that another 5 years later? How do you transform business processes and move to agile, highly configurable solutions without spending the X whatever $1 million in transformation? So we've spent a lot of time thinking about what does that future transformation journey look like? What are the solutions, both from a technology point of view, a services point of view, and a commercial point of view that achieves those objectives? So we'll spend a few minutes sort of walking you through the strategy of moving from IT as a cost center, IT as a focus on cost and reliability, to IT truly as an accelerator and enabler of business competitiveness.
So I want to add that, I've done a couple of these with Avasant before and other conferences, and typically you come and talk to the group after you're done. You've gone through the transfer, you can tell everybody about how it's gone and all the learnings and the things that have been great. So we're actually here at the beginning. We've been working on this probably for about 6 to 9 months. And so Mattel is at the beginning of their journey, and so we're taking a different approach. We're here at the beginning. We're going to start talking about it. We're going to start giving you, and hopefully you'll be here in a couple of years with us, and it will have gone well. We might not be here talking about it then if we're not, but we thought it would be a really interesting approach with the audiences that come to these to really take you along the journey with us and to be able to share things as they happen. Because I think a lot of companies either start things and don't complete them, or as they're going through the journey, they have trouble and they want to be able to have people to reach out to say, we're having trouble, or we're encountering things, or we just need someone to talk to who's going down, or we're contemplating doing something like this. It'd be really nice to know somebody else that's going through something like this. And the thing about Mattel is we've just decided to do it all at once. So if there's any part of transformation you're thinking about, you can certainly come and talk to us about it. But so it's a little different approach, but we certainly think that it provides for some great conversation as we're going through this.
So when we sat back with Marilyn, with the Chief Information Officer, the Chief Technology Officer, business groups, and said, well, how do we take this conundrum of we need to embed technology leadership in every aspect of Mattel's value chain and still have to deal with these legacy challenges related to legacy systems, disparate data sets, a very low velocity of innovation within IT. We decided to take a stepwise approach, and we'll talk about that in a little bit of a detail on the next slide. So we call this theme business innovation through technology leadership. Now, to be clear, it's a deliberate choice to call it technology leadership and not IT leadership, because the leadership is being driven by technology. As Hassan spoke, technology is ubiquitous, whether it exists in AWS, whether it exists in other companies such as AWS, whether it exists in some of the technology companies and service providers here, whether it's being created in a garage by the next 16-year-old who wants to sell his company at 19. Technology is ubiquitous. Information technology departments in the traditional sense of the word are not. It really is up to IT on whether they will lead the charge and show the way, because somebody will. And so we think of it as technology not tied to a particular organization. In many cases, it is the information technology department, like in Mattel. In other cases, it could be product, it could be lines of business, et cetera. But we took a very structured approach to say, at the end of the day, any technology innovation has to do 3 things. The bottom part is what the outsourcing industry has been focused on for the last 30 years. I'm going to take your services and improve the SLAs by a little bit. I'm going to move to the next lowest country in the value chain somewhere. I'm going to take you to a country in Eastern Europe where people mysteriously speak all dialects of Polish and Romanian and Hungarian. And you know what? We cannot disparage that, because that's critical. Without a strong foundation of IT services or technology services, the rest of the superstructure cannot exist. But we cannot just stop at saying, hey, we negotiated great SLAs and Dassault has all the right tick marks, and boy, the services pricing dropped a little. So when we started talking about service delivery effectiveness, there were a few things that were critical for Mattel to change versus how traditionally IT services have been structured and delivered and contracted for. And the first was move away from fragmented IT technology towers into converged technology services. The reason is very simple. Supply chain doesn't care what storage is and what end user devices are and what compute is. Supply chain just cares that a product goes from point A to point B through point C, D, and E in a reliable, predictable way without loss of revenue and at a cost-effective way. So we need to look at technology as a converged whole, not as disparate service towers. We need integrated service orchestration because there's no point having disparate services that do not talk to each other, do not provide end-to-end business benefits. So, maybe 20 years ago, there was this whole things of network uptime SLAs and storage SLAs. Frankly, it doesn't matter. If the business process is down, I don't really care whether the database is working. So we moved to a model of where it has to be an end-to-end service orchestration with a single point of accountability for the strategic partner. Link that to standardized global delivery. You've got 150 locations, plants, distribution centers, sales offices, headquarters. We need a model that provides reliable, predictable services in a standardized model across all of them. And the last one's critical. And you'll see it's interesting. For us, automation, self-healing, is not the top of the pyramid for something to aspire to. It is a foundational element without which transformation cannot happen. So the automation story isn't an aspirational story that we sell as part of strategy. It's table stakes to get started on transformation. And we have a very aggressive automation agenda, both in IT and some of the business processes, where Marilyn is leading the transformation. Because without automating processes, without getting the kind of insights you need from your business processes in IT, you cannot do the transformation. The next layer up is, fix the plumbing, let's put it that way. A significant consolidation on infrastructure, integrated lifecycle management so that infrastructure does not ever get to N-2 or N-4 or N-5 ever again, because without that, you do not have the agility and you do not have the cost effectiveness to deliver services. And critically, it's delivered in a hybrid cloud environment. 80% of all transformations we're looking at have some kind of hybrid cloud. We're past the discussion of is cloud secure, we're past the discussion of is cloud reliable. In order to transform cost effectively and have agile, flexible solutions with rapid velocity of change, it has to be on the cloud. Otherwise, a lot of the other propositions you make around transformation fall apart. The next step Marilyn will talk about is what we did on the operations side. Once we have the foundation on technology in place and the services in place to deliver those foundational services.
And I can't really stress enough how important the infrastructure foundation is going to be to the transformation, because we really can't achieve the operations effectiveness without the infrastructure. Not just on technology, but also on business process, because the group and the functions that I work with are not just technology. It's HR, it's finance, it's procurement, it's customer centers. And if our technology is not reliable, if we can't run and close the books reliably, if we can't run our call centers for our customers, if that isn't working reliably and when we need it to be and on platforms that have low risk, then we can't achieve any of the business processes that we need to achieve. And those are the things that are having to transform in order to support the product transformation that's supporting kind of the new customer that's out there. So that is actually just critical for us. And so as you look at the things that are happening around operations effectiveness, that's what's really underlying all of the product and the support that's going on in our emerging markets and in our branding and in our marketing. And what we have seen is that the applications that we have, Mattel grew somewhat acquisitively, if you look at just even the branding that we have Mattel, we've got Fisher-Price, we've got American Girl, we've got a couple of other small things that are out there. I mean, those are all actually different brands that have come together under the umbrella of Mattel, and for a long time, operated fairly autonomously. I think all of you who have worked for large corporations and are there now know that a lot of times what happens is it's very nice to put all of that revenue to the top line, and somehow we forget about integrating all of those operations and all of that cost in the bottom line until it comes to that breaking point where I've suddenly got 1,000 plus applications, I've got 100 plus locations, I've got 200 plus business units, and it becomes just a behemoth that is impossible to manage. And especially in times when your margins don't cover kind of the sins of the past, it is very difficult to move forward. And so what we've been having to do is look across the business. I mean, you saw one of the business strategies has been this cost optimization. Well, cost optimization is not just everybody has to reduce 10% of costs, although we've all gotten those mandates, but it is looking to say, if I'm going to take out cost and I'm going to take out the things that I need to do, I've got to look at how do I understand my end-to-end process, how do I look at the technology that's enabling it, and how do I rationalize both of them at the same time. That has proven to be exceptionally difficult. I think probably we've all lived through that, but when you've got the history of a company like Mattel and the acquisitions that they've gone through, we've just found that that has been a task that's been quite the difficult one to go through, and we're having to do it. And it's like the layer of the onion. You peel back one and you find more, and you peel back one and you find more. So this operational effectiveness for us is exceptionally key, on top of modernizing the infrastructure in order to make sure that the business processes are supporting that agility. For the technology transformation, what's really going to make the difference is that we're going to be able to just, I used the word before, but leapfrog. And I think what we're trying to do, if you go to the next piece on the slide, is actually, and you can even add one more, is look at the partners and the structure that allows us to innovate and build the models that just kind of leapfrog what's happened in the past 10 to 15 years. So we don't want to go, the journey is just going to go like this, because we just can't afford to take the time to kind of go through those cycles. It's a little hard on the organization, because being an organization that has a lot of institutional knowledge and kind of investment in the core brand and franchise, that's hard. But from a technology perspective and a leadership perspective, we have to do that in order to kind of build the new Mattel. But it's exciting at the same time, because it really does allow us to take advantage of some of the really new and interesting things that are happening out in the marketplace, because those are not just things that enable the technology infrastructure, they're enabling our products at the same time.
And I'd add on the co-innovation front. So in this particular case, this initiative is being led largely within the information technology department, with leadership on transformation and support from the business lines of business, et cetera. But product innovation is an interesting concept. So as Kevin mentioned earlier, where every product is either a digital product or has a digital extension, as Hassan mentioned, where it's very easy to spin up new utilities, whether it's related to, those fancy words that we used to say about 3 years ago that a lot of people roll their eyes about, oh no, don't worry, this will never happen in my lifetime. Well, this is not a zombie, since this is not a zombie convention, it has happened within our lifetime. Words like IoT, edge computing, artificial intelligence are no longer things that you read in a Philip K. Dick novel. It's happening today. It's commercial grade today. It's cost effective today. And therefore, technology can now expand its horizon to say, yes, I can fix infrastructure. I can get you server refreshes. I can integrate applications and I can integrate business processes. But I can also lead you to a different relationship with your customers. I can lead you to a different relationship with how you design your products and the relationship between the customers and the products there. The other key point is that in this ecosystem, no one really has the answer. Some of it's going to come from places like Amazon and other hyperscale providers. Others are going to come from technology innovators. Others are going to come from service providers. Some of it will come from consulting firms such as us. Some of it will come from corporate leaders such as Marilyn. That's why co-innovation becomes critical. This is no longer a case of here's a statement of work for a project I want you to implement with 400 requirements. Please give me a fixed price for that and let's pay you by milestone. Do you know why that's not possible? I don't know what technologies will be invented that'll be relevant to a business model 5 years from now. So we can't write prescriptive relationships for things that haven't been invented yet. There are people in this room who may have a view into what that might be, maybe a better view than us, but even they don't know what technologies will be there 5 years from now. This is like, this is like writing a statement of work for 3D printing in the year 2007. You'd either have to be a real visionary, but it doesn't work that way. So we need that co-innovation model where the strategic partner, and increasingly it's going to be one strategic partner. It won't be 17 vendors because we'll be able to slice out a contract 17 different ways, because you cannot get innovation, you cannot get investment, you cannot get the level of integration if there are 17 vendors working together. It'll increasingly be one strategic partner. It'll increasingly be one underlying technology. And to Hassan's point, it has to be open. It has to be open source, it has to be OpenStack, it has to be flexible, it has to be agile. But the partner that companies like Mattel will work with will be the partner that can bring this entire ecosystem together. So I said 2 years ago, I used to temper myself and say, yes, I am capable of tempering myself, anybody. So I used to say things like, this is where we are headed. I didn't believe that at that point. I knew we were already there, but you temper yourself and say, this is where we possibly may be headed. Well, I think in 2017, we can safely say this is where we are. Every transformation relationship that a major global organization is going to implement has to contain these elements. Any of these bricks missing, especially cloud, especially innovation, especially product innovation, especially co-investment and co-innovation, the entire house doesn't stand. And what we've seen at Mattel, what we've seen at some of our other clients, you need the visionary leaders within the organization to support this and sponsor this, but you also need the visionaries within the product groups, within the product vendors, within the service providers to make this happen.